All right, let's debate whether we should use the term database or data store in the context of Cassandra, of course. So before that, let's ask ourselves, where did the name Cassandra come from? I'm not too sure if you guys watched the movie Troy, right? So the king of Troy was Priam, and he had two children, a girl and a boy. The girl's name was Cassandra, and the boy's name was Hector. So in the past, um, Hector used to be the library, the database library to interface with Cassandra. And Priam till date continues to be the monitoring tool. Perfect, right? I mean, father and the two kids, the father has to, keep an eye on the kids. So Priam, the monitoring tool, the dad, and Cassandra, the database. Anyway, that doesn't matter. We are not here to talk about any mythology or anything like that. But the idea is, if you look at the logo, it has a blue eye and with a pupil. And in the pupil, if you notice, there is a Cassandra cluster. Again, kind of irrelevant, but just kind of very interesting, references. But anyway, that's just so that you know. So Cassandra apparently had beautiful blue eyes, so that's the reason why. Anyway, doesn't matter. Coming back to the question, database or data store? It's both are okay depending on what's your personal preference is. But this point forward, right, I'm going to refer to Cassandra as a data store. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because when somebody says database, the classical RDBMS principles comes to my mind. And Cassandra is nothing like that. So just to make sure that there is no confusion in my mind in my interactions with my customers, I'm going to refer to Cassandra as a data store. Or if I don't want to use the word data store, maybe I'll just stick with NoSQL. Next is, a lot of unlearning is required. If you're from strong database background, right, a lot of unlearning is required, where the traditional way of thinking of organizing the data and then looking at the business and say, well, how do you want the data now? Right? That model pretty much changes. In fact, it's absolutely upside down. So the more you know RDBMS, the worse off you are. The inspiration is from Google's Big Table and the original DynamoDB paper. The two developers who wrote this actually were from the respective teams, and that's why there's a lot of that influence. Probably the second time I'm mentioning this, maybe the third. You need to start thinking about hash maps. The more you think about hash maps, the better off you are in Cassandra. You'll soon see, the moment we are talking about Cassandra internals, especially when we see the data organized on the disk, you'll begin to realize this is nothing but a persistent distributed hash map, which spans across not just maybe dozens, but thousands of nodes. In addition to hash map, I really require you guys to put your head around two of the core principles or core APIs of a hash map, a put and get. The moment you're talking about put, what are we saying? We're saying that hashmap.put key comma value. The key will go through a hashing algorithm and it will generate a hash value, and then that particular hash value, right, will be used to identify which bucket the data needs to go. Once the bucket has been identified, the data is placed there. That is your put. And get is exactly the reverse. The more we start thinking on these lines, the better off we are in Cassandra. And I'll give you an example. In fact, I'll give you examples, plural, to make sure that you understand this. The internal storage mechanism of Cassandra is LSM, log structured merge tree. Unlike a B tree or a B plus tree, which databases uses. This basically brings us to a very interesting, understanding that Cassandra can actually be tuned independently to deliver high reads and high writes. And you will also begin to realize that when we are talking about huge velocity of data, high velocity of data coming in to your system, how can LSM help? One more time. Cassandra is not a columnar data store. Cassandra is a row-oriented data store. When we open up the Cassandra internal database file, it's actually called an SS table, a term that we don't have to know now. When we open that physical file in which Cassandra stores data, you'll begin to see that indeed it is a row-oriented store and not a columnar store. And one of the core features that Cassandra offers is masterless. And because of this masterless, right, we basically have a situation where there is no single point of failure. A feature that customers would love to have. This ensures high availability of your system.